I love Catalyst. I love the Catalyst event. I'm not on the board. I don't own any of it. I just am the hired speaker, and I've been so privileged to be able to kick it off every single year. And Tyler, who kicked off the morning for us, Tyler Reagan and I are good friends. We used to work together, and I love the Catalyst gathering. And if you don't know, a Catalyst leader is simply a leader who loves the local church. It's not necessarily a church leader, but it's a leader in any capacity, a church leader, business leader, marketplace leader, nonprofit leader, any leader who just loves and is passionate about the local church. And so gathering every once in a while and kind of re-upping our thinking and renewing our thinking about leadership and about the church and what God's doing in the world and our part in it is so fun. And before I jump into the content, I just want to say, what you've been called to do, in whatever capacity you do it as it relates to the local church, is no small endeavor, and it's no small invitation. And as we were singing a few minutes ago, I'm always reminded in a couple of the songs and a couple of lines in a couple of those songs that we are connected to men and women from 2,000 years ago who paid an extraordinary price so that the message of the gospel could be passed to the next generation, and then another group of people paid an extraordinary price to make sure the gospel could be passed to the next generation. And we are, and you should think of this about this every once in a while, you are in line, you are in sync with, you are lined up with that group of people. You are an extension of them. So what you've been called to do and what you're doing, it is no small thing that you have and we have collectively been entrusted with the church for our generation. And I hope no matter how small your student ministry is, how large it is, how big your children's ministry is, you're sitting in front of a computer all day long thinking, am I doing ministry or am I doing this? Whatever you do, please don't ever forget that what you've been called to do and what you're doing, it is no small thing. It is extraordinarily strategic because we have been entrusted. We've been entrusted with the future of the local church for our generation and in our country and really for the world. Now, I love our theme, and I'm going to ask one quick question. Could we close those doors over there in the corner? If you over there, can y'all close those doors? That would be so great because it's kind of like in my face. I appreciate that. Close those doors. Yeah, they should have gotten here on time with everybody else. The doors are closed. And then it started raining. That's a different story. Anyway. Okay, so I love our theme for the next couple days, Fully Alive, and I love the passage that Tyler chose for this theme. And I just want to read you the passage, and then we're going to look at this and talk about some stuff and kind of get this thing kicked off. But here, the passage that Tyler chose, it's perfect. John 10:10, and most of you can say it by heart, except for the last line that's actually part of verse 11. That should have probably been part of verse 10. Jesus said, The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. But I, Jesus says, I have come that you might have life. And not just any kind of life to the full, and to have it to the full. I am, he says, the good shepherd. So here's what I want to kind of leave with you in this first session as we think about what we're going to do and what we're going to talk about the next couple of days. And it's simply this, that you as a leader, in whatever capacity you lead, that you will only remain fully alive as a leader. You will remain fully alive as a leader no matter how old you are, how educated you are, how long you've been leading. You will only remain fully alive as a leader if you ignore the imposter shepherds and keep pace with the good shepherd. That for the rest of your life and for the rest of your ministry, you will be tempted to follow, and I'm going to talk specifically about what the few of these are in just a minute, the imposter shepherds. And yet Jesus in the first century says to that group of people gathered around him, I know it's strange, I know you're going to have questions, I'm not going to answer them all today, but I am the good shepherd. And I have a group of people that I'm going to call out to lead this movement, my ecclesia, my gathering, this brand new thing that I'm launching in the world with a brand new covenant and a brand new command that's not simply for a group of people, but is for the whole world. And as church leaders, you are part of that group that God has called out to influence your local community churches and churches all over the world. And you will only remain fully alive to the degree that you are correct, you are connected and specifically individually connected to the good shepherd. The imposter shepherds promise life, but in the end, as you know, they steal it. The imposters will eventually steal your passion. They will eventually, go to the next slide. Yeah, they'll steal your passion. They'll kill your vision. And ultimately, they will destroy your reputation, because the imposter shepherds are not in it for the sheep. The imposter shepherds are in it for themselves. Now, if you don't get this right, and some of you are in the middle of trying to figure it out, I understand that. And sometimes the longer you're in leadership, the easier it is to become a little bit cynical, a little bit critical. The longer you're in leadership, sometimes, especially when things aren't going great, it becomes very easy to assign your motives to everybody else. And before long, not only do you not have life, but you wonder if anybody has life. You wonder if everybody's just kind of mailing it in. You wonder if there's anything to this. And so what we're going to talk about in this first session as we set up these next 2 days together is so extraordinarily important, because I want you to do a little digging. I want you to do a little bit of self-evaluation. And if you can be honest with yourself in this first session about what we're going to talk about, it's going to open you up to all the extraordinary content that you're going to be given and shared with for these next 2 days. So who are these imposter thieves, these imposter shepherds? The things that will creep into your life and creep into my life and tempt us to follow them instead of following the good shepherd. And I want to just suggest 3. I think there are far more than that. But here are 3 that I want you to think about, especially as we think about those of us who are in church leadership. The first one is the first imposter shepherd I'm going to give you is the word certainty or certainty. And the reason I want to start with this one is because this is the one that I struggle with. How many Enneagram 5s do we have in the room? Enneagram 5s? Yes, we don't usually make woo either. We just raise our hand because we're wondering why did he even ask that question, right? The Enneagram 5, we just want to know everything. We want to understand everything. We constantly feel stupid because we don't understand how everything works. The only show that Sandra and I watch together right now is This Is Us, and This Is Us fans, you know, and the thing about This Is Us that I don't like is that I can't figure out how they made it. And she's like, just enjoy it. I'm going, I can't enjoy it. How did they write this script? How did they shoot this? How can they go both directions at the same time? It just makes me, she says, I know it makes you feel stupid. I go, it does, it makes me feel stupid. So unfortunately for me, and depending on where you are on the Enneagram, and depending on your personality or even the way that however you're wired, your answer to this question is going to be a little bit different than mine. But there's something that's peculiar to the way that you're wired that's going to show up as an imposter shepherd in your life. And for me, it's certainty, because I want to know everything and I want to be certain, and I don't want to make decisions until I'm absolutely certain, until I have all the information, and it can paralyze me as a leader. But certainty is not my shepherd, right? And certainty is not your shepherd. And having to have all the answers and all the right answers and the fear of making a mistake can become an imposter shepherd that sidelines you and sidetracks you, as it certainly can for me when it comes to leadership and whatever. Whatever capacity you lead. For me, it becomes an issue of pride, because I don't ever want to be wrong. And nobody ever wants to be wrong. But my desire and my quest for certainty and my quest for always getting it right can become the guiding principle of my life. And when that happens, I'm no longer following the Good Shepherd. And the way you are wired, and you know this, the way you are wired predisposes you to veer off in directions that are not healthy because the way you're wired. And this is why what Jesus said at the very beginning, throughout his ministry, is simply this. I love these two words. In fact, these are the two words I set out in front of just about every message, and I have for years. When he just said to his disciples in the first century, he says, been saying it to people for 2,000 years, just follow me, follow me, follow me. And you're going to be tempted to follow a lot of things, but follow me. The quest for certainty is draining. It's just draining. Not only is it draining, it's paralyzing. The Apostle Paul is super helpful in this capacity for me, or for those of you that struggle with this. Here's what he said. And again, these are words that you've taught. These are words in some cases you've memorized. He says, for now, this is 1 Corinthians 13, for now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then in the future we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, and that's the part I don't like. I don't want to know in part. I want to know everything. I want to have all the insight. I want to have all the knowledge. I want to have all the cards out. I want to know everything I can possibly know so I can make the best decisions possible. The Apostle Paul, who got to write, half the New Testament, says, relax, Andy. On your best day, you're only going to know in part, and you're going to have to be content with that. But if you allow that to paralyze you in your leadership, you're no longer following the Good Shepherd. You're following an imposter, the quest for certainty. But then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And then he says this. And again, these words are so powerful for me as a leader because it brings me back to center. And I think regardless of how you're wired, it brings all of us back to center. Because he says, look, Andy, 1 Corinthians 13, 2, if I have the gift of prophecy, right? If I can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, if suddenly one day you woke up and you had the answer for every question and you knew everything there was to know, if you have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge and have a faith that can move mountains, but you don't have love, you're nothing. And I'm constantly reminded, and you should be constantly reminded as well, as you focus in, or I should say, as you discover that peculiar thing about you because of the way that you're wired that will pull you off center and pull you away from following the Good Shepherd, that at the end of the day, you have been called to do one thing supremely well, and that is to love. I wrote in my notes that my success in ministry is not contingent upon my certainty. My success in ministry and my success as a leader is not contingent upon my certainty, but on how well I love. How I treat people. These are my notes for me. From my kind of reading my quiet time journal, so just bear with me. How I treat people transcends my limited knowledge, insight, and experience. How I treat people has to be on the front burner at all times, regardless of what I know, how smart I am, how dumb I am, how great I feel, how stupid I feel. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, how I treat people is preeminent because this is the new command that Jesus gave us. As I have loved you, you are to love one another. When you know it all, when you know nothing at all. This is what it means to follow Jesus as our Good Shepherd. Love reduces the friction created by my limited insight, my limited knowledge, and my judgment-inhibiting experiences. I've had to learn that it's okay not to know. I've had to learn that it's okay to be wrong. It's never okay not to love. It's okay not to know. It's okay to be wrong. It's never okay not to love. I'm not always sure, like many of you, what to believe. But I usually know what love requires of me. And as you lead through your peculiar personality, your temperament, all the things that make you you, at the end of the day, you are wired to be pulled off track to the left or the right because of the way you're designed and wired. And this is what's so powerful about Jesus' new command. He says, regardless of the way you're wired, and regardless of what happens between the people that you work with and the people that you lead, at the end of the day, you have to ask this question: what does love require of you? Because that's going to be the thing that characterizes my movement. And if you keep that front and center, and if you keep questions like this front and center, it will pull you away. It will keep you from being lured away by the things that you'll be tempted to follow instead of the Good Shepherd. Follow the Good Shepherd, and you will never stop learning, but you will never substitute how much you know for how well you love. If you follow the Good Shepherd, you will never, ever, ever stop learning, but you will never substitute all that you know for your call to love. So your thing may not be certainty, but you got a thing. You got a thing that if I gave a list of 20 things, I may never hit your thing. There's something about you because of the way that God has created you and designed you on purpose that sets you up to fall short or to move ahead of the speed and the direction of the Good Shepherd. And once you identify what that is and keep it front and center, you have set yourself up for success and leadership. But to lead blindly, and here's the thing, and you know this because you've worked for lots of different people. Everybody around you knows what that thing is. The people that work for me, they know Andy struggles with certainty. Andy struggles with having all the information. Andy doesn't make decisions quick enough for the rest of the organization. Everybody around you already knows. You should know. And when you discover and announce it, no one's going to be surprised. No one's going to pull out a pen and say, really, they already know. And it is potentially limiting your leadership. And the quicker you know it and the quicker you decide, hey, that may be true of me, but you are not my shepherd. You need to know what that is. You need to set it out front and don't ever lose sight of it. The moment you lose sight of it, the moment it goes dark, the moment it goes outside of your peripheral vision is the moment it begins to impact your leadership in secret. The second imposter that we all struggle with is insecurity. The good news is this is something we all have in common. We are all insecure at some level. You will never be fully alive as a leader following your insecurity. You will never be fully alive as a leader following your insecurity. You can have insecurities and you can carry insecurities, but the moment they begin to direct you and lead you, you have put a lid on your own leadership. And your insecurity, and you've worked with some leaders, you've seen this happen, your insecurity will define your leadership. Your insecurity will put a limit not only on your leadership, it defines your leadership. And you will force people to work around it, or in some cases, you'll just force people to lead. Insecurity, this next slide, insecurity will eventually lead you to dishonesty. Insecurity, if you follow it. Insecurity, if you listen to that whisper, and all of our insecurities whisper. For some of you, every time you look in the mirror, your insecurity whispers. For some of you, every time you put on a microphone and you're sitting on the front or second row and you're going to go up to speak, your insecurity begins to whisper. Every time some of you're sitting in a meeting and your leader, your senior pastor, your lead pastor, your boss asks a question or begins a discussion and there's something you want to share and your insecurity begins to whisper. All of us hear that whisper. None of us in leadership can afford to allow our insecurities to become our shepherd. And if you do, it will define and limit your leadership. Insecurity will eventually lead you to dishonesty, which erodes your credibility, which ultimately undermines your moral authority. And you know this is true not because you see it in the mirror. You know this is true because you've seen it happen with other leaders. Insecurity will eventually lead you to be dishonest, first with yourself and then with the people around you, which ultimately erodes your credibility because the moment the people who report to you and work with you are the people who sit in your congregation, the moment you lose credibility, they begin to suspect everything you say and everything you teach and everything you preach. It's just human nature. And so this is why you can carry your insecurities. You may never totally conquer your insecurities. I don't know that you ever can. But you cannot allow, and I cannot allow my insecurities to be my shepherd. It's not a good shepherd. It's an imposter. And as you already know, it has ruined the ministries and the leadership potential of countless leaders inside the church and out. The good news is this. God only uses insecure leaders. You're qualified to lead. In fact, our favorite stories in the New and the Old Testament, the insecure leaders that kind of bring their insecurities to God, and God's like, hey, you're fine, Moses, just go back. But shh, just go back. But shh, just go. But I know. That's the point. You're no good at this. That's why I'm going to get all the glory. Just go. You know? It's amazing that Peter became the leader of the first century church in Jerusalem. Peter, we know more negative things about Peter than any of the other disciples. Why? Because he just kept talking and talking and talking and talking. You talk long enough, people are going to know your insecurities. And then what does he do? He denies Jesus. And Jesus says, you know what I'm going to do? You're in charge. And one of the things that's so powerful about the New Testament and the New Testament documents and the Gospels, the reason they're so credible is that, all the warts and all the weird stuff is out there, right? Nobody said, Peter's like, hey, could we not include that? No, we're putting it in. Why? Because it happened. That's why we're putting it in here. None of these guys are heroes. They all, in fact, the more insecure they are and the more we know about their insecurities, it's like the more God used them to shape the world. So you're qualified. You've got insecurities. You just can't afford to allow those to become the shepherds of your life. You cannot afford to spend so much time and energy masking them and covering them and denying them. That the energy you're supposed to use to move something forward is given to hiding something, that everybody who knows you knows about anyway. Face them, but do not follow them. I think you should name them. I know what mine are, but I'm too insecure to tell you what they are. Anyway, and I know for me, and I'm a little bit further down the road than some of you in terms of leadership, but I know this. I've identified their whisper. Oh, yeah, because mine don't ever go away. And you think, Andy, you have insecurities. If you only knew. You may not have come to the first session. But anyway, so here's what I would suggest you do. You need to name them, and then you need to call them out. And sometimes I'm doing something, and I will say under my breath or out loud, not so other people can hear, no, that's fill in the blank talking. No, you're not my shepherd. You are not the boss of me. You are not my shepherd. That's true. I admit that. I am that way. I do feel that way. I do see the world that way. I do see myself that way. Yes. But you are not the boss of me. I have a good shepherd. And my good shepherd can actually leverage my permanent insecurities to do great things in my community, in the world, if I choose to follow the good shepherd. So, I'm going to give you ask you to make a commitment. Here's the commitment I want you to make as a leader. I will not lie to myself, even when the truth makes me feel bad about myself. I will not lie to myself, even when the truth. See, in our culture, you know this, because a lot of you do a student ministry, like the worst thing in the world is for somebody to feel bad about themselves. So what do? We teach them to lie to themselves. Oh, no, you're pretty. Somewhere, I guess she's pretty. I don't know. Is that what we're supposed to do? Just lie to her? She's not pretty. Pretty is it's kind of all over the map depending on when you were born, what culture you live in, where you live, which magazines you get, right? So, oh, no, you're smart. No, he's not that smart. I know, but tell him he's smart. Why? So he'll just feel dumb the rest of his life. That's what they did to me. Oh, no, Andy, you're smart. I'm like, no, I'm not smart. I have grades to prove I'm So I will not lie. So I want us to actually say this together. I would like you just to commit to this, because here's the thing. Your insecurities will cause you to lie. Here's the thing. First to yourself and then to other people. It's just the nature of insecurity. And so where do you stop this? You stop it right here. So let's just say this together. I will not lie to myself, even when the truth makes me feel bad. Do you know what's worse than feeling bad about yourself? Living with a lie. It's not so bad to feel bad about yourself. Hey, you're a sinner. At some level, you should feel bad about yourself. It is okay. It's okay to feel bad about myself. I don't have to not feel bad about myself. I just have to decide, who am I going to follow? And here's the thing. And then when people point out the fact that you don't have so much to brag about, and people point out the things that aren't so great about you, you know what you say at that point? And I have gotten pretty good at this. You go, I know. I already know that. That's not new information. I know that. I've just decided to put it out there appropriately, because I'm not going to lie to myself even when I feel bad about myself, because I'll tell you what's worse than feeling bad about myself. Missing an opportunity to live my life in the center of God's will and to do what God has called me to do. That's what we should fear, and that's the thing we don't want to miss. And if you don't get a handle on this, at the end of the day, your insecurities become your shepherd. Here's a question that you can ask that'll help. Again, these are just out of my life. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I'm not finished if you're writing notes. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this really? Why am I speaking on that topic really? Ready for this one? Why am I avoiding him really? Well, I'm busy. But no. Why are you avoiding him? Well, no. Why did you decide to let somebody else follow up instead of you following? Why? Come on. Just be honest. Why are you wearing that really? Why are you going there really? Why did you say yes to that really? Why did you say no to that really? One of my deep insecurities, I've talked about this before, is, and I was a failure as an athlete, and there was a couple of weird incidences I'm not going to take the time to take that were just weird, and I am so intimidated by athletes, especially professional athletes. And so for years, I would get these calls like, Andy, so-and-so is coming to town, and they're playing the Hawks, and they want you to come to their chapel. I'm like, I've got some friends. I'd like to give them that opportunity. Because the thought of walking into the locker room with guys that are 6.5 and 7 feet, have you ever stood in the presence of an NBA team? They're like from a different planet. I mean, when they're all together, they look normal, but when you're in their locker room, it's like, wow, y'all are way closer to God than I'll ever be. That's just amazing, okay? So for years, I would just lie and tell myself, I'm just giving these people these opportunities. Oh, come on, Andy. You're not giving people opportunities. You're intimidated and you're too insecure to walk into a locker room with professional athletes and talk. So I'm glad I got that out. So what's yours? I will not lie to myself, even when lying to myself makes me feel bad about myself. And come on, why am I doing this? And why am I doing this? Really, our insecurities should remind us, but they can't define us and they can't guide us. It's an imposter. If you follow it, it will ultimately steal, kill, and destroy your potential. And again, you've seen this with other people, and they're not necessarily going to go away. But just own it. Just own it. And say, you're my insecurity, you're not my shepherd. The third one, and we're going to give you some positive stuff. The third one is envy. And boy, in church world, This is just terrible, isn't it? Envy will lead you to do what everybody else is already doing. Is that what you want to do? That's all envy does. It just leads you to wear what everybody's wearing, say what everybody else is saying, speak the way they speak, sing the way they sing. I mean, envy's just going to lead you to do what everybody else is doing. The problem is you'll be late. They won't even notice. And you probably won't even be good at it. It leads you to live in what I call the land of You know what the land of is? The land of is, it has to be bigger, it has to be better, I have to be known-er, I have to be more retweeted-er, I have to be followed-er, I have to be famous-er, and on you go. And it just leads to nowhere. In fact, I'd just like for you to repeat this after me as well. There's no win in comparison. Let's just say this. There's no win in comparison. There's no win in comparison. There's no win in comparison. Other people's stories and other people's accomplishments can inspire you, but the moment you begin to compare, you have made them, their story, your shepherd. And here's the great news. God hasn't called you to do anything just like everybody else. That's the good news. God has called you to do something extraordinary in your community, and he needs your specific skills and insight into your community to do what needs to be done in your community. So take inspiration and take motivation from the stories of other extraordinary leaders in all fields. But don't compare yourself. Comparison is a bad shepherd, and all of us tend or incline sometimes to lean in that direction. I wrote in my notes, you'll end up arrogant, critical, or depressed. Those are your only three options. You'll end up arrogant because you're better than everybody. You'll end up critical because the only way for me to feel good about myself is to tear you down, or you'll just be depressed. I'll never be that good. I mean, what kind of life is that? But you know what? Speaking for me, it never goes away. It never goes away. And again, I hear that voice and I just have to say, no. There's no win. There's no win. There's no win in comparison. Envy, you are not my shepherd. Envy will only steal, kill, and destroy. It'll leave you running in a lane you were never intended to run in, chasing somebody else's dream, and it's exhausting. So, certainty, insecurity, envy. There are dozens of other false shepherds. But all of us have one or two that we tend to listen to that whisper. So here's the flip side of that. Those are the imposters. And what I want to leave you with in our final few minutes is I want to leave you with some postures. Those are the imposters, and there are other imposter shepherds that sneak into the pen and will tend to want you to follow. But here are the postures, and I really do think if you can embrace these three postures, and there may be more, but these are just the three that mean a lot to me. If you'll embrace these three postures, I think it sets us up to fend off the not-so-good shepherds, the imposter shepherds, and to keep Jesus front and center as it relates to what you have been called to do, where you've been called to do it. And the first one is to maintain an open mind. Embrace the uncertainty. Don't try to eliminate it. And don't try to pretend it's not there. In fact, just a little tip. You realize that uncertainty is why there's a need for leadership. The moment the uncertainty all goes away, there's no need for leadership. If there's no uncertainty, we just need, people to kind of pull levers and push buttons, and we'll just, everything just kind of runs itself. Uncertainty is job security for people in leadership. And so because the world is uncertain and because things are changing, you have to be the most open-minded, curious people on the planet, especially if you're leading any kind of local church ministry. And one of the things that's gotten us in so much trouble, and you know this, in fact, it's the reason some of you left your last church to start a new church or go somewhere else. A lack of curiosity undermines ministry every single time, and a lack of curiosity has undermined the church in many generations, just almost derailed the church, almost completely put it in the periphery of culture because the church wasn't curious. And the reason is this, or part of the reason is this, that we confuse the unchanging God with the changing world and the changing culture. We get them all mixed up. God doesn't change. Everything else does. So think about it. We should be the most curious, open-minded people on the planet. And the moment, and you've seen this, we've all seen, the moment that our fear of and what if, and I don't know, and what about, the moment fear begins to cloud your thinking and shut down your imagination, you just can't. Fear is not your master. Fear is not your master. Jesus is your master. And it's okay not to know, but it's not okay to decide I already know everything I need to know. So, be curious. Follow the other team. You need to know what everybody out there is doing just about. Follow the other team. And every once in a while, it's so funny. I'll get, on Twitter, I mention like, why do you follow them? I mean, this happens about every other week. Somebody get mad at me because who I follow on Twitter. Because I'm supposed to only follow the people I already agree with, apparently. And please don't look at all the people I follow. You'll be very concerned, okay? But how do we learn, right? I'm not afraid. Why? But look, the deeper your anchor is set in the foundation of your faith, the longer your line can go because you're securely anchored. So be curious, follow the other team, avoid confirmation bias. You know what that is? You only listen to stuff that confirms what you already believe and what you already know. We need to be so dialed into this because the moment you start to emotionally respond to new information or negatively or emotionally react to new information, that's just your confirmation bias kicking in. You just need to say, confirmation bias, you are not my shepherd. I'm going to be curious for the rest of my life. I'm going to be open-minded. Listen to outsiders, people outside your industry, outside the church industry. Be a student first and a critic second. Student first, critic second. Student first. Never, ever, 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 ever criticize something you don't understand. Never, ever, ever, ever criticize something you don't understand or haven't at least attempted to understand. The moment you do that, you shut things down. And fear not. Now, for those of you who are 40 and over, I just want to challenge you with this. The next generation church is going to be birthed by the next generation. This is just brilliant. I mean, where do I come up with this stuff, right? I mean, what could be more obvious? But listen. The next generation church will be birthed by the next generation. But the next generation doesn't have the resources that we have. So, current generation leaders, do you want to miss this? Do you want to be the generation that's like, no, we built, and this is how it worked, and that, the reason you're doing what you're doing, the reason we're in a building like this, on a campus like this, is because some extraordinary leaders said, we're going to do what it takes, we're not just going to do what's always been done. So look, the next generation church is going to be created by and figured out by the next generation. I don't want to miss that. I'm not going to come up with it, but the moment those people start breaking the rules and messing with the rules around the edges and trying new things, I want to be part of the generation that says, I didn't come up with it, but I'm going to resource it, I'm going to fund it, I'm going to cheer it on, and even if I don't fully get it, who cares? Nobody died and left our generation in charge, right? So, the only way not to miss this is to live like this. Is to live open-minded. Closed-minded leaders, they always close minds. Closed-minded leaders always close minds. If you want to close the minds of the next generation that's working for you, you just be a closed-minded leader. And here's what will happen. The innovators that work for you will take their next generation ideas somewhere else. And the really bad news is this. The status quo people will stay and bury you. Let's not be that generation of church leaders. Let's be ridiculously scary, open-minded people. Secondly, kind of tip my hand to this, is the second one is we need to be open-handed, live with open hands. I love this passage. There's this narrative, bit of narrative, you've taught it and read before, where John the Baptist is the guy. The movies don't do John the Baptist justice. And if you read the Gospels, here's what the Gospels tell us. All Judea and Jerusalem went to hear John the Baptist. That means there weren't 15 or 20 or 30 people out there on the riverbank going, who is this guy? Let's say it's hyperbole. Let's say it's real hyperbole. A third of Judea and Jerusalem. This means thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people went to hear John the Baptist. He was the guy. And then along came Jesus. I just love this picture. Can you imagine? He set everybody up. He's faced down the Pharisees. You brood of vipers, who warned you to flee from the coming wrath. It's just amazing. He's the guy. All eyes on John. And one day he stops. And he says, look, behold, the Lamb of God that comes to take it. This is the one I was telling you about. You thought I was the guy? I wasn't the guy. This is the guy. So here's what happens. But hey, John the Baptist had some people around him like you do. Rabbi, that man, they're talking about Jesus, that man who was with you on the other side of the Jordan, the one you testified about, look, he's got more mentions, he's got more followers, he's got more fans, he's baptizing, look, he is baptizing and everyone is going to him. They're not doing it right. To this, John responded, what baptism technique has he employed that so many would leave us for him? I love this next line. You leaders, you should all memorize this. That's what John the Baptist says. He looks at the people who love him and support him, and if he's not careful, they will bury him and lead him away from what he's been called to do. A person can receive only what is given them from heaven. A person can only receive what is given them from heaven. You can only receive what is given you from heaven. So lead with your hands wide open. Do not close your hands around my ministry and my people and my volunteers and my big donor and my building and my. A man can only receive what is given him from heaven. We're stewards. We're not owners. You don't have any people. You don't have a church. You don't have a ministry. You got nothing. You lead this way, you'll be a better leader. The moment you start doing this, you begin to limit what God can place in your hands. You begin to limit what you can steward. About 10 years ago, actually more than 10 years ago, Louis Giglio, my friend from the 6th grade, came to me, we've known each other forever, came to me and said, I'm going to start a church in Atlanta, and I want you to be one of the first to know. I said, that is great. But here's what I actually said. He was 50 at the time, or we had just both turned 50. And I said, now you realize people our age are trying to get out of this, not into it. This is for young people starting churches, I kind of kidded him. So he announced, and sort of word got out, Louis Giglio starting church, and it's in Atlanta. And all of a sudden there was this, church pastors from all around the country started contacting me like, I know you're upset about this. How dare he do this? And I'm like, what? And I realized there's this assumed tension. So I got up in front of our staff. We had a staff meeting actually about 7 days after Louis and I had this little lunch. And I said, okay, look. You've heard, Louis starting a church, and they ended up about 1.9, not that I've measured, 1.9 and a half miles from one of our campuses. Anyway, I just happen to know that. I said, so you've heard of this? I said, look, in our organization, we do not whisper about this. We celebrate this. If you want to work there, you can apply there, and you don't whisper about that here. If you want to attend there and work here, that's fine. In other words, this is not something we whisper about. This is something we celebrate out loud, because I learned this from my dad. The moment you start doing this, you essentially fend off the leadership of your Heavenly Father. Life is too short for that. I said, so go there, celebrate there. We're going to give them money to help them get going. You do not have to whisper about this. There is no tension between me and Louis, and don't you start creating tension between you and people. And I know lots of people are going to leave our church and go there. That is okay, because, listen, I don't have any people. A man can only receive what is given to him from heaven. This is how we lead. This is how we lead. And when you decide to follow the Good Shepherd, that's what it looks like. And the moment you start doing this, that's insecurity whispering, that's limited, it's everything is wrong about this. And so interesting, I got to finish this up and be done here a second. Actually, I'm done. Time says I'm done. Anyway, so not too long after that, Louis's mom, who I grew up with Louis in his house and friends, and so his mom was in the hospital. She was very sick. She was dying. So I went to the hospital one Sunday after I preached 3 times, and Louis's there, and talk about kind of cool. I mean, it's not cool to die, but if you have to die, and you do, having Chris Tomlin in the hospital room with you, singing with you, I mean, it was amazing. There's Chris Tomlin and Shelley and Louis and me and other people, and we're singing with Martha Jean, and I just love Martha Jean. She was like a second mom to me. And the day's getting later and later, and it's Sunday, and they're having their service at 4:30, and Louis doesn't want to leave his mom. So he turns to me in the hospital room. He said, hey, I can't leave her. I said, I know you can't leave her. He said, would you go to Passion City and preach for me tonight? So that's what this looks like. He said, oh, by the way, you'll know most of the people there. And I did. And they were shocked to see me. Listen, life is too short. And what you're doing is too important to live any other way. We're going to close in a few minutes with this song, but not quite yet. But listen to these lyrics. You've sung these before. Make me your vessel. Make me an offering. Don't sing this later if you don't mean it. Make me whatever you want me to be. Ready for this line? I came here with nothing. You came here with nothing. I came here with nothing. Anything other than nothing is a graced gift of God to you. But all you have given me, so Jesus, bring new wine out of me. You close your hands, you will squeeze the life out of you and the people around you. You'll have less to offer, and you'll have less, and you'll have less to offer. Third one, real quick. Fully alive leadership. You got to be open-minded. You got to stay open-handed, and you got to be an open heart. Keep an open heart. And the way you do this is what the Apostle Paul said. It's so clear. Ephesians 4, you've taught this before. He said, all right, you want to get this right? Yeah, we want to get this right. You want to have a clean heart? Yeah, you want to lead with a clean heart? You want to prepare messages with a clean heart? You want to lead worship with a clean heart? You want to write children's curriculum with a clean heart? You want to interact with volunteers with a clean heart? Yeah, I do. He says, all right, here it's very simple. Get rid of. As in, I love the imagery here in the text. It's pick it up and carry it to the street and leave it. This is about taking your garbage out. This is about pulling it up out of the kitchen or wherever you do it and closing that plastic bag, walking it out to the street and leaving it there. Get rid of all, not part of it, not the convenient part. Don't hang on to some of it because you get a little sympathy every time you tell your sad story. Everybody's tired of your sad story. We know you didn't have a happy childhood. We know. Nobody did, okay? So you're not even that unique, okay? Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, slander, along with every form of malice. Get rid of all of it. You're still mad at your pastor you used to work for. You're still mad at the church because they let you go. You're still mad at a previous employer. You're still mad at an ex-wife. You're still mad at an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend. You can't. That becomes your shepherd. Your anger. Your story becomes your shepherd. And the good shepherd says, come on, leave that behind. You think you were mistreated? Have you read the Gospels? Oh, yeah, sorry, I brought that up. Oh, people hated you. Have you read? Never mind. You had a tough childhood? Our family went to Egypt, not for vacation. This stuff always leaks. It will taint your leadership. It will undermine your credibility. And I don't have to give you illustrations because we all have them. You protect that stuff too long, it will eat you up inside, said Don Henley, and it will. So here's the fully alive leader. It's just 3 postures. It's every single morning. I have a little routine I go through every single morning. I hope you have a morning routine as well. And part of it is this. God, I do not want to close my mind to the frontiers of my ignorance. I want to pay attention to the frontiers of my ignorance. I want to be the most curious Christian on planet Earth. I want to know what you'll allow me to know. But when I get to the edge of my knowledge, I want to love well. And God, I want to live like this. And I'm telling you, I know you're not going to believe me, but I promise, every week of my life in ministry, I've been tempted to do this because something comes along that goes, that's my way. We did that way. Who owns that? Wait, that intellectual property. And an open heart. Just, God, cleanse me. And for all of us here, we have some work to do somewhere, don't we? Where do you have work to do? Are you following an imposter? Are you following certainty or something else that's peculiar to the way you're wired? Insecurity, envy, anger. Are you willing to open up your mind? Are you willing to open up your heart? Are you willing to live with open hands? The text ends like this. Jesus calls his sheep by name. And I love this. And he leads them out. And when he has brought out his own, he goes on ahead of them. And his sheep, here it is, follow him because they know his voice. Let's not be leaders who listen to the voice of envy, insecurity, the quest for certainty, or anything else. Let's be fully alive and in sync with the will of our Savior. This is what my dad has always said, and I'll close with this. Andy, I've heard it 1,000 times. Andy, the most important thing in the world is your personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Do you know why? Because he, and only he, is the good shepherd.